Joining me now from Capitol Hill, Congressman Steve Israel, chairman of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. Congressman, good to see you. You're a supporter of Obamacare, but you've also said Obamacare could be improved. The president's decision today to delay insurance cancellations for a year. Is that enough?
It is an improvement. I had several dozen constituents on Long Island in New York call my office who received these lack of coverage notices, and they weren't interested in who was to blame. They wanted to know how it was going to be solved. Today, the president took a very important step in solving that problem. I can now tell those constituents that there is a solution. And secondly, look, where there need to be fixes and improvements of the Affordable Care Act, we ought to do it. I do not support repealing, defunding, and reversing the Affordable Care Act. So let's continue in the spirit of cooperation to make these improvements, but let's not go back to a system where too many Americans were told that they were losing their coverage, that a pre-existing condition was kicking them off that coverage.
So, Congressman, House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, she says that your caucus, House Democrats, are going to offer up your own fix tomorrow. What's in this fix?
Well, we're about to go into a meeting to talk about whether there is a need to continue to pursue legislative resolution to this. I think that the president had an important step and that he can do this administratively. If there is a need for us to do this legislatively, then I'm open to that. What's important is not the process, whether you do this administratively or whether you do this legislatively. What's important is the solution, and that's what most Americans want us focused on.
There are individuals in your caucus like Congressman Doyle who have expressed real frustration, especially behind closed doors, with the difference between what the White House has been doing, their reaction when it comes to Obamacare, and complaints about the website, complaints about shall we call it a broken pledge of not being able to keep your health plan if you like your health plan. You are somebody, as the chair of the DCCC, the body in charge of electing Democrats to the House, you're somebody who hears from a lot of these Democrats who are worried about re-election, who are upset about what they're hearing from their constituents. With the understanding that you support the health care bill, what are some of the complaints that you're hearing that need to be fixed beyond what President Obama discussed today?
Well, look, there are two major complaints. They're self-evident. A website that has not worked and is not working that must be fixed, and the notices that people received that their coverage was being terminated. Both of those solutions need fixes, and we need to focus on those fixes. Going forward, however, people don't care about the politics of this stuff, and quite honestly, they shouldn't be hung up on who to blame. What we should be focused on is how do you get it fixed? How do you get it solved? And every poll that I have seen on this issue says the same thing. Most Americans would prefer a member of Congress who vows to fix and improve the Affordable Care Act versus a member of Congress who is obsessed with repealing and defunding the Affordable Care Act. And so we need to be focused on those fixes, those improvements, and those solutions, and not get hung up on the partisanship and the politics of repealing and defunding the law.
Congressman, do you think as this bill was being sold to the American people that the White House and those pushing the bill were as forthright about some of the issues as they could have been? I'm specifically referring to, if you like your health plan, you can keep your health plan, but also the fact that if you look at some of the trade-offs that are going to be made, generally speaking, when it comes to the individual insurance market, women will pay less, men will pay more. Older people will pay less, younger people will pay more. Healthy people will pay more, and sick people will pay less. I don't know that that was fully conveyed to the American people. If you could go back in time, do you think there should have been more honest salesmanship?
Well, there should have been certainly more precise education and more precise salesmanship. There's no question about that. But you can't go back in time. All you can do is move forward. And since going back in time is physically impossible, we should focus on what is in our control. What is in our control is continuing to make improvements and fixes to this law and not allow a small group of Republicans or a large group of Republicans in the House of Representatives to continue to ambush and sabotage this law. What counts is where we end up, and here's where we need to end up, with a law that provides less expensive coverage for most Americans and a law that provides consumer protections. Most of the casework that I got, Jake, in my office on health care issues in New York was from constituents who were diagnosed with breast cancer or other pre-existing conditions who were told by their insurance companies, you lose. Literally, you lose your policy. I do not want to go back to that system.
No, I hear what you're saying, but in order for people with pre-existing conditions to automatically be able to get insurance, other people need to pay more to pay for that, and I don't know that that was fully and adequately conveyed to the American people.
And what we have to do is continue to try and make fixes where we can and make those improvements, which is a far better alternative than repealing and junking the entire law and going back to the system where Americans had health insurance companies controlling their health care, and where fundamental health decisions were made based not on how do we get you healthy, but how do we enlarge our profits as an insurance company. I do not want to go back to that. Can this law continue to be improved? Yes. I'm all in on that, and we'll work with Republicans and Democrats to accomplish that goal. But continuing to ambush and sabotage it, continue to be obsessed with repealing and defunding it, is not a good option for the American people.
Congressman.